Welcome everybody to Still a Part of Us. I am Winter. I'm the one of the hosts of this show, and we're going to be talking with Angelica a little bit about her experience with the stillbirth of her son Ezra. A couple of things before we get started, just housekeeping things. This conversation is full of triggers, so if you are not in a good place, please do not listen, do not watch. We want to be as helpful as possible, and if you're not in a good place, please just be aware that we will be talking about a lot of different things that could be hard to listen to. So please just be aware of that. And if you are part of our community, if you are a lost mom, lost dad, hit the subscribe button. We are here to help build community. So please join us and help each other out. Once again, Angelica, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us about Ezra. If you did not get a chance to hear her birth story, you will cry because I did. Please check that birth story out. Angelica, thank you once again for coming on today and discussing some things that have helped you and have not helped you. So, welcome once again.
Thank you so much, and thank you for, again, wanting to hear my son's story.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so wonderful to be able to tell it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Tell us again, just so that everybody is kind of brought up to speed, how long ago was Ezra born?
He was born on June 1st of 2020.
So, at the time of this recording, it's been just about 10 months or so. So still very new, still very raw, and I'm gonna just be like, that first birthday coming up is that can be that's gonna be a milestone that's can be a little tricky, so and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And also just to a little bit of context, Ezra was stillborn at 33 weeks so that everybody knows where we're coming from. So, Angelica, tell me how it's been these last 10 months for you. How's your grief been? How have you approached it, I guess? And how have you dealt with it?
Well, to start with, it was really rough and dark. It just felt everything just felt so dark in those first couple of weeks. I think I was actually so despondent that my husband was concerned that I would do something drastic, is what he told me. And I'd done talk therapy before, but he looked at me, he said, "If you're willing to do it this early, you know, I really think you should." And so I did start to go to counseling in the first 2 to 3 weeks
Mhm.
following Ezra's death. And, and that did help. That did help quite a bit. And I went about twice a week for several months, and then eventually down to once a week for several months. And now it's kind of been titrated to about once a month for the past 2 weeks. 2 weeks, excuse me, 2 months or so.
Mhm. Mhm. And it sounds like it has been somewhat helpful.
Yes, yeah. I found that it was really helpful for me to talk about him
Mhm.
and to talk about what happened. I didn't realize how much it would be helpful to talk about him because there are so many other instances where I've met parents who just they don't want to talk about what happened at all.
Mhm.
They just kind of wanna sweep it under the rug for the moment and just kind of move forward. And I thought to myself, am I doing this wrong? Because I feel like I want to talk about him more, or am I part of too many support groups, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I didn't actually start going to support groups until about 2 months after, and it started with local support groups.
Yeah.
Um, but I found another organization. It's called the Star Legacy Foundation,
Oh, yes.
which
Uh-huh.
which I imagine somebody has to have mentioned
Yeah.
once before on here. But they had a physician who was doing a seminar on umbilical cords, and because we don't really know what happened to Ezra, I thought, well, maybe he's got information that will give me an aha moment,
I
and I
see.
can talk to my doctor about it and see if that could have been part of what happened. And then from there, found the support groups on there.
Great. It makes a huge difference when you are sitting with somebody that has had a very similar experience to you and not have to kinda explain all those feelings that you have and if they've never experienced before, because you mentioned it before in your birth episode. your background is as a NICU nurse, a neonatal intensive care unit nurse, and so you've always had that idea that there's a possibility, right? You've seen people have loss before, but you said something that struck a chord with me where you said, I had no idea, even though I understood it until you actually have felt the loss yourself. It's totally different, right?
It is.
Eh
It really is. Because in report, when we're talking about our patients, we talk about their moms, we talk about their birth history,
Mhm,
and that includes mom's birth history as well.
mhm.
So if parents have had a previous loss, then we generally know about those. And anytime that you hear about somebody who's had previous losses, it just before losing Ezra it would make my heart sink. But now I it makes me weak at the knees just thinking about what that person is going through. So yeah, what other people have the ability to imagine doesn't even touch the actual experience, regardless of how much they've worked on it, how much they try to understand it. And I'm grateful for that. I am so grateful that there are people out there who try, who work with those who have lost, but who've never experienced that loss themselves.
Yeah,
I think that's I'm grateful that they haven't been through that themselves.
yeah. And but are willing. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, shout out to my therapist, same thing with her. She's never experienced that kind of loss, but she has helped us so much. So, yes, I completely
Good.
agree with you that there are some people that are still doing wonderful things, despite not having had that loss. Thankfully not having that loss. So, um,
Mhm.
you have gone to see a therapist and also some of these grief groups, that are you can also you can find them kind of online. You can meet electronically, I guess,
Mhm.
which is so nice, especially at this time when meetings, like in-person meetings, are not happening. I believe my hospital, I don't think has any of those in-person meetings. It's all Zoom right now anyway. So yeah.
That's us too. I think that the pandemic has made this technology more accessible,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so I think for as awful as things have been over the last year for so many different reasons, obviously, I think that aspect of things has been it's been helpful. It's
Yes.
been really helpful to have the access to those people electronically, virtually.
Yeah, virtually. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is a blessing. That's a little silver lining of the pandemic, right? Um, and when you obviously you had Ezra and this was a big surprise, obviously not expected. You were 33 weeks. Were you allowed to take some time off to after his birth?
Yes, yes, and I originally asked them just to allow me to take whatever I was allowed for maternity leave. Originally, I was approved for 9 weeks off,
Mhm.
and as I was getting to, like, the 7, 8-week mark, I started to panic about thinking about going back to work
Yeah.
because I just didn't know I didn't even know I could physically enter the hospital, let alone
Onto your
walk those same halls,
yes.
you know, go back into the unit where I was just hours before I was admitted
Yeah.
and found out that he was gone. So I didn't know. And so I petitioned for 3 more, which I had, it was within the policy to allow me to have that extra time,
Right.
but they were very gracious. So I was able to take 12 full weeks off, and I needed every last day.
Yeah. Great. That's great. And transitioning back to work, so did you go back to the NICU?
Mhm. Yeah,
How
I did.
how's that been?
It's been a whirlwind. I started off the first week or so the first week or so, I was with a fellow employee, one of my peers, almost like I was being oriented back onto the floor because I knew that if something happened, I needed somebody who was going to be able to watch my assignments, like, right then and there. I wasn't gonna be able to wait for somebody who could come and take over for me in 20 minutes when they were done with their assignment elsewhere. I needed someone who could take over the reins, and I knew that the kids were safe because my biggest concern was that I wasn't going to be a safe nurse, that I was going to be distracted,
I see.
and it started out in small increments. So, I think I started out with 4-hour increments, went to 8, and then eventually worked my way back up to full 12s.
Right, right. I think that's and was that something that you kind of worked out with your nurse manager to create something that kind of a schedule so that you could feel like you were easing back into things?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I talked with my nurse manager, and they kind of worked out what types of assignments I should be taking as well,
Mm,
just
mhm.
to make sure that they weren't giving me little boys named Ezra
Yeah,
or 33 weekers,
yeah.
just to kind of be sensitive about the details
Yes.
um, surrounding Ezra's birth and helping me to come back. Just because, and I don't ask me why they want me back because I don't feel like I feel pretty worthless as a NICU nurse someday. But they've been very kind and they've been trying to help me to adjust back.
Yeah. Yeah, praises to your I seriously, they have just to pay attention to, like you said, the details. The fact that they're like, if this patient is a 33 worker, this baby is a 33 weeker, that's those little things that can be triggering. And the fact that
Mhm.
they are paying attention is cool. Like that is very sensitive and cool of them to do that or to be aware of
They've been
that.
amazing.
Yeah.
My coworkers have been amazing, and actually, so because he was born early,
Mhm.
or because we delivered early, I didn't have those extra weeks of PTO built up.
Mm, mhm.
And so I think I was able to cover 7 weeks of PTO on my own. All the rest of it was PTO donation
Oh,
from my coworkers.
that is awesome. That is so kind.
They they fed and and clothed my family and kept the lights on for 5 weeks. I just It's hard to know how to say thank you to them
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. That's really great. I think that's good job, coworkers.
They're amazing. They're just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Now you're back up to, like, full-time shifts, and how's that been? Are you how's that? Are you looking are you doing okay? Like, I can't imagine honestly working on the NICU, so I just like, oh, yeah.
I'm actually not working full time, I'm point 0.6,
Oh,
so
okay,
I'm working 2 days a week,
okay.
and that was always the plan.
Oh,
That was always the plan for us, for me to go to point 0.6 after Ezra was born, because our intent was for me to be able to spend more time with the kids and then to kind of minimize the amount of childcare we would
yes.
need.
Yes, for sure.
But after Ezra passed, I just thought to myself, "I don't know that I can force myself to be on the floor any longer than that." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because, as you probably know, you spend all of your days off just accruing as much energy as you can so that you can be functional and have your head on straight. And I feel like those 2 days at work every week, they take every ounce of energy that I have collected over, a couple of days
Yeah,
at a time
yeah,
off of work.
yeah. That is a great way of putting it. You do need to store it up to yeah, to be on task, I guess. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes. Well, and for me, I don't want to be a liability, you
Right.
know?
Yes.
And I after losing my own child, couldn't I couldn't live with myself knowing that I had contributed to the loss of somebody else's child.
Yes.
So when I'm at work, I try to be
You're on.
as
Yeah.
focused as I possibly can be
Yes.
and as attentive to detail as my brain will allow.
Yeah.
And so far, they haven't asked me to leave.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it's a good
Yeah, I
sign.
think that is a good sign. Um, well, yeah. Angelica, tell me what you have done in order to kind of remember Ezra. I know you mentioned in your birth story that they gave you a weighted teddy bear. And I think some people don't know about these kind of weighted teddy bears or weighted like stuffed animals where it's the same weight
Yeah.
as your child. Oh, you're gonna go grab it. Yay.
Show and tell. So I have two.
Oh, look at that.
So this is the teddy bear that they gave us in the hospital,
Uh-huh. Oh, he's really cute.
and he actually weighs less than Ezra, but it's strange when you're cradling them in your arms, they just feel so small
Yeah.
and so weightless. And so when I was holding him, I thought to myself that, that they had to be around the same weight, but they aren't.
Oh,
They aren't, at least not with the Molly bear that we got later on. And I think this is called the Comfort Cub.
cute.
That's him. And then this is the Molly bear that we made.
And then it's got his name and everything. That's so cute.
Yeah. Has his metrics on the
Oh,
bottom.
that's great. Is that something that you can have, like, custom with the Molly Bears?
Yeah,
Okay, because we don't
yeah.
have one, and that's I first that was not on our radar because I did not know that there was something you could do like that, and then I started talking to more people. I was like, "Oh, maybe I should get a Molly Bear because that would be fun to have something that is his weight, kind of represents
And
our
you can
sons."
get one at any point.
Yeah.
My mom actually, so my mom had a pregnancy loss between my brother and me. Um, and so that's 30 30 plus years, and she
Yeah.
got a Molly bear last year
Oh,
too.
that's great. So how far along was her loss? I'm curious.
She was about 17 weeks along,
Yeah.
but it was the 80s, and so, I mean, in circumstances where maybe a nurse would have offered to let her hold the baby or see the baby, they didn't give her that opportunity. They didn't let her labor. They just the DNC
Oh,
patched her up and sent her out the door.
yeah.
They don't even really know what happened to the baby. They
Yeah.
don't know.
Isn't that just I'm so grateful when I hear stories from different times that I'm like, we are a little bit it seems like we get a little bit more chance to be with our child to figure out things to
Yeah,
be able to mourn and grieve. And that it just yeah, so grateful that it's a little different than back in the
me
70s or,
too.
a different time. So that's cool that she was able to get a Molly Bear too. I think that's great. Any other things that you guys have to, remember Ezra by?
Yeah, a lot of people have given me jewelry.
Mhm.
So I have a ring with his name on it. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see it.
yeah, it's a little small,
I
but
don't know
that's
if it's
okay.
reversed.
Yeah.
Um, and bracelets, and then, I had this necklace made, so
Oh, look at
got his
that.
picture on one side, and then it's got his
Oh,
footprints
I love
and his
that.
name and his date of birth on the other.
Look at his cute little footprints. Those are so cute. Did you just have that made?
Mhm. Yeah, you send the photo files to them, and then they just adjust them to size
That is
so that they
great.
can put it on there. And other people have sent us lots of things like that too, just really thoughtful things. But then we have the things from the hospital
Mhm.
as well. So we have his little footprint.
Oh, I could totally can't see that. It's a little too oh.
It's a little
Oh, I
bit
see it
too
there.
so
There it
big.
is. That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay.
um, and then the hospital gave us, so this is a blanket that they sent for Philippa
Oh, for her.
to for her, and then they also sent her a teddy bear.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And and then we have photo books. Like I made this one for Pippa because the one that Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep made for us is really big. And
Oh.
every time she tried to pull it down, I was worried that she was going to give herself a concussion. So So I made her a little one that has
Of
little, like,
that
little
oh,
things that you can write on the inside of it.
that is so cool.
Um, and it's small for small hands.
Yeah, so she can reference that. Oh, that so I'm so the big album is from, So I Lay Me Down to Sleep. They that is cool. I didn't realize that they made
Yeah.
albums. Um,
It's actually from, I can't remember the name of the company, but they so they're contracted through the hospital. So the
okay.
hospital kind of links them together
Yeah,
with Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, and then they just make a photo book for you.
that is
They
really cool.
using the files that they took when they got the photographs in the
Yeah,
hospital, and I I love I love having I love having it. I
yeah,
really do.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that it looks awesome, and what a beautiful, like, kind of just a remembrance, being able to flip through those photos
Yeah,
regularly and easily, so I think that's awesome.
yeah. And then they make I when when I thought about what I was going to do for a baby book, because I was thinking about that after the fact, I just broke down and I was looking online, and there is a memorial baby book that they make called I Love You Still.
Yes, I have seen that, but I have not gotten it, but I
And
so you can just put
that's Pippa's contribution. Um, um, but it has information about you, and you can put pictures in, what your family looked like before,
Oh, that's so
and
great.
then it goes month by month. So 4 months, 7 months, and eventually you get to the point where you were when you lost, and so there are blank pages, but it's a way to kind of include that information, and I feel like it's almost like a self-help book too, because at the back it's got, you know, prompts like, "How have you changed?" and, what things have helped you? I am grateful for."
I think that's
So you
so
can use it like a journal too.
I will share a link to that because I have like I said, I that just barely showed up on my radar and I was like, "Oh, I might not need to check that out." That is really cool that there's kind of this option to
Yeah,
create a baby book in a sense. Yeah, because you would record all those things.
and I remember writing him down after we came home from the hospital. It was pretty quick after that I started to write things down, just because I could feel the fog starting to set in, and it's still there. I still feel so foggy, but having some of those things in writing
Yeah.
is helpful. It can help me to jog my memory a little bit, and because every time that I feel like those memories are slipping away, I just feel like I'm losing a part of him too,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just hard.
Yes.
It's just been hard.
Yeah, those memories are I writing things down has been key for us too. So even if it's just a quick note on my phone, if I remember something, I try we try to do that. Like I do that on my phone. My husband, I know that he usually keeps a little notes file as well. And so, yeah, I think writing it down as quickly as possible is always super helpful. And then I have actually really enjoyed going back and looking at some of the things that I wrote, and I do notice some changes, right? Like
Yeah,
yeah, you kind of notice changes in yourself and then also like, "Oh, I don't remember that," but then now it jogs my memory to of something else that I had felt at the time. So,
yeah.
yeah, so
And I've always been horrible about writing.
uh-huh.
I'd start a journal and then put in a couple of entries, and then 5 years later stumble upon it again. But, I was amazed by the number of people who gifted us journals, and
Yeah.
so I thought, "Okay, maybe I'll start one." So I did start writing in a journal,
Great.
and I figured that, I can't I often can't, write in a diary like, I do diary, because for some reason it doesn't establish a habit for me, and
Yeah.
so, I've started writing just letters to him.
Oh, okay.
Letters to Ezra, like I'm talking to him about the day,
Yeah.
things that I was thinking about that day, ways that I was thinking about him, things that reminded me of him, just like having a conversation with him.
Yeah.
It's That's been helpful too.
That's awesome. A little bit of inclusion in your day. I like that a lot. So Nick was you mentioned your husband Nick. He was very how has he handled all of this in the last 10 months?
He, like me, has just been kind of all over the map because it's just a roller coaster of emotions, it really is. Um, but to start with, he just seemed so strangely serene, you know? Um, I mentioned that when they first wheeled me into the recovery room
Mhm.
and I saw him there holding Ezra, he was telling me that another baby had been born, and I said I started to cry, and he said, "No, it's okay. I'm grateful that their baby is okay. I'm grateful that everything is okay for them." And he just kept repeating that word for, the subsequent 3 or 4 weeks. "I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful I had a chance to meet him and hold him." And as time passed, I could tell that he was trying to kind of keep it together for me
Mhm.
to a certain extent because he has definitely had his moments where he needs me to be the strong one or he needs somebody else's support. And I kept telling him not to do that at the very beginning because I knew that he was bound to, and I just didn't want him to feel like he had to bear the weight of everything and do all of the hard stuff, especially when you're making plans for a funeral. And one of the photos that I shared with you is the final draft of Ezra's headstone, and Nick actually designed that.
Oh,
And so, just having to do all of these hard things and to not to not have help and support yourself, I wanted him to know that he didn't have to do that to himself. That he's worthy of having help too.
yeah. I'm actually a little curious about if Nick how the process of designing Ezra's headstone was for him. My husband and I designed uh, we actually got a little bench for our
Oh,
son, and I found it strangely therapeutic to do that because it was like I would be, setting up a crib for him or, doing something. It felt like a thing I could do for him. Like I was going to create something. And so I'd just be curious to know if Nick felt some sort of like, hey, I'm doing something for my son. Like I'm making him something, like I'm just interesting.
I've never asked him that specifically, but I know that after he would have, a couple of hours of work on the design, he would he would seem like he was pretty emotionally depleted, you
Really.
know?
Yeah.
Um, but it came out so lovely. I can't help but think of it as a labor of love
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
his part.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool that he did that. I because that is I'll be honest, I was totally checked out. That fog had set in when we were planning funeral stuff, and I was so grateful for Lee because he really just like I said, I felt like he stepped up and he was like, "I gotta take care of this. I gotta take care of my family, and this is the way I'm gonna take care of my family
Mm.
as best as possible." And so, sounds like Nick is has was that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is amazing. Oh my gosh, it is amazing just how the shock affects you.
Mhm.
There are so many beautiful things that I've heard other parents have done for their kids, and I think to myself, "That's an obvious one. Why didn't I do that
Mhm.
too?" Like, for example, at Ezra's funeral, there were no flowers. It was June, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the fact that there should have been flowers. Some people said that they played music. I didn't My head just was not there.
Yeah. And
I don't know why.
well, I mean, and when was the last time you planned a funeral, Angelica? Like, really? I mean, we, it just is. You don't ever think you're going to be planning a funeral, at our age, right? It
Oh,
just so why would you know? to get flowers. The only reason why we had flowers for our son was because my mother-in-law said, "Usually you get some flowers." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. We'll order some flowers." Like somebody had to tell me what to do. And I was grateful for that because I, like you said, I just
No.
didn't have a head on my shoulders at that time. I was completely out of
It's
it.
not like we didn't have flowers. We had a house full of
Yeah.
flowers. I think before all of this, we had one vase that would disappear every single time that we needed it. Now I have a closet full of vases, and I
Uh-huh.
almost kind of can't stand having flowers in a vase in my house just because of how many flowers there were. It's almost a triggering thing for
Yeah.
me. But I could have gathered together any one of those and had, like, a big bouquet for his funeral, and my brain just was not there.
Yeah. That I think it is completely understandable. It's completely understandable. So I am curious if you have had, if somebody did something for you or said anything to you that was like you want to remember that and it was so you really appreciated what they said or what they did for you in the last 10 months.
That morning, the morning that Ezra was born, we were sitting in the hospital room, and flowers arrived, and, I don't have the butterfly is somewhere else, but it was this arrangement from downstairs, and it had a butterfly on it and it had a card, and it was from the neonatologists and nurse practitioners on my floor because they knew what had happened. It's not like I had told anybody,
Yeah.
but they knew. They knew what had happened, and they cared enough to send me something to say, "We understand. This sucks."
Yeah.
And since then, so many people have done the same. They've brought food, and I feel like I am eternally indebted to so many people. The list just is too long for me to really pinpoint any one particular person because I just felt so much love and support in a time when that kind of thing feels nigh on impossible with a pandemic and with the concerns that you have of potentially making somebody else sick.
Mhm.
People who would come up and look at me and say, "I've got a mask on, you've got a mask on. Can I give you a hug?"
Oh.
You know, um, and just I think one thing I remember is that I hadn't been hugged by anybody other than my husband and my
Right.
daughter for months.
Right.
I got more hugs in the couple of days following my son's death than I had from January, February on.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just that human touch that I had forgotten was so necessary. And they were when I needed them, and there were so many people who showed up who I haven't talked to in ages, but they offered to make food and take my daughter to the park and sit with me and cry with me, and, you know, like I was saying with my coworkers, sacrifice their own time off so that I had a couple of extra weeks to pull myself together and determine whether or not I was gonna be able to go back to work, and now I feel like I have no choice. Because, how could I leave some place full of so many wonderful, amazing human beings?
Yeah.
Uh, I just feel so grateful despite the awful nature of the experience itself. I feel so grateful to have so many people in my life who love me. It just gives you this renewed faith in humanity.
Yes, that is a perfect way of putting it actually, because yeah, we felt, yeah, just the love, like, we just felt so cared for and loved. It sounds like you have had a similar experience, which is very it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
and just hearing people wanting to talk about him,
Mhm,
you know? Even those really awkward, sometimes triggering things that people say,
mhm.
regardless of how many of those I've encountered, I find that anybody who is willing to talk about him with me, I appreciate them so much
Yeah.
because I know that when you're talking about a stillborn baby, um, it's kind of a conversation stopper. But anybody who looks at you and says, "Tell me more," or "I get you know, you can talk about him anytime or call me anytime that you're having a really rough go of it." Those people who reach out to help when you have no clue what to do, when the only thing that you can say is, "What do I do next?" Because I think that was the question just cycling in my brain for, in the hours and weeks following Ezra's death. I was just thinking to myself, what now? What do I do now? I just need somebody to tell me what I need to do because I can't make those decisions
Yeah.
or I can't make this I can't determine what needs to be done on my own anymore. My brain just is not there anymore.
Yeah. That's you say that and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's exactly how I was." I could not wrap my brain around things that I needed to do. Like, yeah, thank goodness for people that kinda kept our lives together
Yeah.
for those months after. Yeah. It's just so traumatizing. It's just so traumatizing. Is there you have mentioned that people have said some awkward things, obviously. Is there anything that maybe is not the best thing to say to a lost mom that maybe has rubbed you a little wrong? I don't want you to call anybody out. I don't want you to yeah, I don't want you to call anybody out, but if there's anything that because I know that people just want to know what to say, right? They just want to know what to
Yeah.
say and they kind of want to know what to not to say, I think. So that it just makes it, like, not so awkward, I guess.
To start with, like, at the very beginning, I really struggled with religious platitudes,
Mm,
like,
mhm,
like, God has a plan for everything, and, there's a reason for everything. Just because my husband and I, we were raised Catholic, but we
mhm,
haven't been practicing,
mhm.
and so there was just a part of me that just couldn't wrap my head around this idea that there was at the moment, that there was a reason for his death, and I just it that stung a little bit, but I think as time has passed, that's become less triggering, but initially it was extremely triggering. Um, and then just anybody talking about, somebody else's pregnancy or somebody else's baby really close really close to the loss
Mhm.
itself. I remember there was a friend of mine who came in and she's very sweet and asked her how she was doing because she'd asked me how I was doing. And I was just trying to normalize things in the days after we got home from the hospital. And she said, "Oh, things are good." And she was talking to me about a mutual friend of ours. She said, "Yeah, but I'm not going to see them for a couple of weeks because they're going into quarantine for about 2 or 3 weeks before their baby's born, but the baby's due, like, early June or something like that, and or early July or something like that. Ezra was due on July 15th,
Yeah.
and his C-section was scheduled for July 9th, and I just fell apart. I just fell apart. So, I think that just talking about babies and pregnancy in general can be kind of triggering, but I think it's so hard. It's just so, so hard, and I feel like anybody who is even willing to try should be
Mhm.
given grace
Yeah.
because they're willing to enter that awkward zone with you, knowing that, that not everything they say is going to feel just right,
Yeah.
and for every person, it's so different. But I think the thing that helps the most is just all of those comments that are validating, you know, like giving those people the space to talk about what they're feeling and thinking, and then saying, "Yeah, it does suck. Yes, this is hard. Yes, I hear you." And and just confirming that they're not alone.
Yeah. The validating and the confirming of your feelings and because I think sometimes we're so apt to like you mentioned before, you kind of push away those feelings or you sweep them under the rug or you just kind of push them away like I'm not sad, I'm not angry, I'm not all of these things. I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, whatever. We have these feelings. And to have somebody say, "Yeah, this really is hard and this is horrible and this is devastating." That that helps us that helps me emotionally when somebody validates what I'm feeling. Yeah, that's a great way
There's
of putting
this
it.
there's this book that one of our friends gave us. Actually, it was a whole family. They pulled together and they got a book, and then they got a little bunny rabbit for Pippa, and it looks like the bunny rabbit on the book.
Um,
It's called The Rabbit Listened. Um, and it's this story about this little boy who had built up this tower with blocks, and then this, this flock of black birds came down and knocked it down, and he's just sitting in the ruins of this beautiful thing, and various animals are coming through, and the bear says, "I want to be angry about it, let's be angry," but the little boy doesn't say anything because he doesn't want to be angry at that point. And so it just goes through these animals. At the end it has this little bunny rabbit who just is there, just comes and sits next to the little boy quietly until the little boy is ready to say something. And then eventually the little boy does want to be angry, and the little boy does, want to talk about what he remembers, and he does want to be sad, and he does want to hide, and but the little rabbit is just sitting there just listening. And so it's a good reminder to me too, to be that for the other people in my life, because I'm not the only one who lost someone. My parents and Nick's parents, they lost a grandchild.
yeah,
Our siblings, they lost a nephew,
yeah,
and our close friends. Yeah, we we always refer to them as aunts and uncles anyway.
yeah,
They may as well have lost a nephew as well, and they all have really complex feelings around it. And so, knowing that you can be together in it, even though you're not experiencing things the same way, that you can be together in it helps so much.
yeah. That grace that you give others as well is that's really important.
Yeah,
So important. Because yeah, I it's really easy to forget that there are other people that lost someone important to them too. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that just made me remind me of my in-laws who are they love our son so so much and they have expressed that. So that's a good reminder. This has been a really wonderful conversation and I really appreciate all that you've said and shared with us. Is there any last bit of advice that you would like to share with either somebody that is going through this right now or maybe somebody that's supporting a lost mom or a lost dad?
for lost parents, I would say just be gentle with yourself. There is no wrong way to grieve, and and I think for anybody who parent who's lost a baby or somebody who's trying to support them, to reach out, just continue to reach out for those resources, for those people who can help you. There are so many wonderful ways that you can help each other through it. Um, and when you're ready, those resources will be there. You don't have to go to a support group right away. You don't have to start searching for other lost parents, trying to ground yourself right away. But when the day comes that you feel like you're ready, they'll be there. Those organizations will be there. And there are actually support groups for families. for family members. One of them is through the Star Legacy Foundation. They have a monthly meeting for parent, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, people who just want to be there. And, and so, just keep reaching out because for as lonely as this feels, you're not alone.
Thank you so much, Angelica. That was some very good advice.